All right. It is 9 a.m. on Friday, May 21st, in case you were wondering. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our 20th annual Municipal Green Building Conference and Expo. I know you probably didn't know what that acronym stood for before now, but we're so excited to have you here today. It's incredible that this event has been happening for 20 years, and we're so honored to serve this community. And we're really thrilled with the agenda and the content we put together today. We just feel like so blessed at this moment to be able to bring the type of people and programming that we can to our community. And today is really about that the time is indeed now. We've been talking about this for a long time, and the time is now. We'll dive into that here a little bit more in a moment. And before we start today, on behalf of USGBCLA, we recognize and acknowledge the Tongva peoples as the traditional land caretakers of the LA Basin, along with the Chumash to the north and west, and the Tataviam and the Kawiya nations to the east. We are grateful to have the opportunity to host our conference here today, and we pay respect to our ancestors, our elders, and our relatives past, present, and future. Really, we are honored to be able to live here and to work here and to try to really help honor some of the work of the peoples that came before us to really make these communities more sustainable going forward. And along those lines, before we begin, a little bit about who we are. If you're here today, hopefully you know a little bit about that. But USGBCLA is an independent nonprofit. While we're affiliated with the USGBC nationally, that runs the lead credential and certification that you may know and love. At the end of the day, we're really about people and people here in Southern California who are working together to make this a more sustainable region for all. We really want our community and our organization to be the best place for anyone to be able to learn how to do this work, how to make an impact on a local level. And we really see our organization as a platform to support people like you in your work that you do and helping to grow and advance yourself. And again, really focus on the impact you can make personally and professionally here in Southern California. And we're really dedicated to that mission. And we're looking all the time to see how we continue to move things forward and accelerate the progress here. Because as we've learned over the past, year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, it's going to take a lot more to get things done. And just some thoughts. I mean, today is the 20th anniversary of MGBCE. I think just for a moment to reflect on the fact that a conference with a name as convoluted as this can exist for 20 years is pretty amazing. For those of you who are wondering, again, it's Municipal Green Building Conference and Expo. I've had to say that acronym, no less than probably 3,000 times over the last 2.5 years. And it doesn't necessarily get any easier, but it's more about what this conference stands for and the community that's here. And I think, if anything, having a conference like this for 20 years, I really shows the grit and dedication of our green building community here in Southern California. And, along those lines, as I was mentioning earlier, the time is really now. Everything that we've experienced since the pandemic started has really helped focus us in so many ways on, really being aware of what's going on in our environment. And we've been talking about it for 20 years, and we're here now at this pivotal moment. And it is time. The time is now for climate action and rapid decarbonization. The time is now for adaptation and resilience. The time is now for equity and environmental justice. The time is now for racial healing and building community power. And the time is now for a healthy post-COVID future. The reality is it takes these challenges, it takes these moments of heartache and hard work for us to be able to create transformation and create opportunity. And that's why I have this image here on the right, which is a fire poppy emerging after a fire here in California. It takes that moment of change and hardship for us to really look at how we move forward. And I really think we're at this gateway now. We're at this moment where this is our decade of climate impact. We have so much work to do by 2030. All the scientific models around climate change show that we're really in this narrow window here that we have to make an impact and really look at how do we take action on these things that are laid out here. The time is truly now, and this is our decade of climate impact. This is our moment collectively, and really, that's backed up by what's happening on a federal level President Biden and the federal administration has made a commitment to reduce emissions by 50% by 2030. Just to think, 6 months ago, to think that was even something our federal government would be supporting would be possible is hard to believe. And for those of us who've been working in sustainability for a long time, it's incredible an opportunity to work with our federal government to move things forward. And just last week, the federal administration announced a $30 million investment in green building, workforce, and development. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg when you look at the money that's been put into infrastructure development and into building back better at this moment. And the government also announced around buildings and specifically new federal and Energy Star building performance standards. So being more aggressive with the standards that we set for buildings, for appliances, and also new partnerships around electrification and low carbon buildings. We have a federal government at this moment, and we probably only have a 2-year window that's really going to be looking to aggressively move buildings forward and move forward sustainability in the buildings that we live and work in. And we have to really take advantage of that. We haven't had that for the past 20 years, not on this level. And we have a window here where we really need to double down. And the policy work that's going to set the stage for the next 10 years is going to happen here in the next 2 years. And again, that means that this is our decade of climate impact. This is our moment to make a difference. And, last year was challenging in so many ways. Here as an organization, in that fateful day when Tom Hanks got COVID and the NBA shut down, we huddled up and we looked at how are we going to really support our community during this moment. We didn't know where things were headed. We were going into a recession. We were all wondering what was going to happen with this pandemic. And I'm so proud of our team. I'm so proud of our community, our board, everyone that we work with. We really focused on how could we provide a connection during this crisis? How could we be a little bit more human? How could we meet people where they're at and use this as a moment to lean in as an organization? This may be hard for you to believe, but we had one webinar in all of 2019. And in 2020, we ended up hosting 197 events with over 11,000 attendees. That may have been a little too many events. I think my team would probably make that argument. But we really wanted to be here for you, for our community during this moment. And we launched some exciting new initiatives that we think really have spoken to this time that we're in. I'm going to talk about some of those here more in a moment. And we expanded our talent and workforce development programming. There's no question that the more we invest in our youth and invest in ourselves, that's just going to pay dividends as we try to do this good work. And just a reflection on our organization and sustainability in general, we need to work harder on diversifying our community. We really need to work harder on making sure that our sustainability community, our green building community really reflects the people of Los Angeles. And we're focused on that going forward. How do we diversify ourselves in the community that we serve? And I really encourage you to check out our 2020 annual report. You can find it on our website. I think someone from our team is going to drop that into the chat here. Please take a look at our 2020 annual report. We worked hard on that. I think it reflects well the work that we did last year. But that we're not done. Now it's about building on that and building on that momentum. And again, this is our decade of collective climate impact. And so what are we doing? Last year, we launched our talent portal. We wanted to create a hub for those in our industry. We feature employers. We have regular job postings. We have a mentor network. We have all of our training listed on our talent portal, as well as recorded content that's available for free. I highly encourage you to check that out. Tomorrow, we have a Green Jobs Fair at 10 a.m. We have 8 great employers who are hiring. We're going to go into breakouts with those employers so you can meet people. Please tell folks that are looking for a job to come on out. Tomorrow is free for everyone. That's our community day. So please encourage folks to come out. And then we also launched last year our Green Schools initiative. We really wanted to try to help kids during this time better connect with sustainability, especially those that haven't had this exposure in the past in many of our communities here in LA. And it really was an opportunity, given that things were virtual, for us to get to places we weren't able to do in the past. So we developed the Sustainability Fundamentals education course last year that we're delivering as a distance learning opportunity. Hopefully in the fall that will transfer to an in-person learning opportunity. And tomorrow at 10 a.m., we're offering classes for elementary and secondary school students on sustainability in 2 45-minute sessions. This is free. Please invite your friends, your family members, bring your kids. This is an opportunity for people to get a really good overview of what sustainability is and what it means. And then also last year, when the pandemic hit, we were getting 10 volunteer applications a week for a while. We felt like we really needed to provide something to help people who needed an opportunity to network right now, to build out their skill set. So we launched the Green Building Corps last year, and this has been just a phenomenal program for us. I want to say thank you to all of our Green Building Corps members and all their work they do, that they help support our organization and our initiatives. But we just onboarded our new 2021 cohort. We do 2 cohorts a year of this program. really helping to give people real world experience. We give a certificate for them when they complete the program. And I'm really excited. We just brought on our first employer last week, who's actually hiring the Green Building Corps to do project support work for them. And I want to make sure that you who are here today know that you can hire the Green Building Corps to do work for you as well. We help manage this group, but they're available to work on projects in the green building world and in sustainability. So if you're looking for some extra support or intern support, please come to us, and we can provide the Green Building Corps to help support the work that you're doing. And you can help them go on their journey as well. We also do 100% mentor and mentee matchmaking for this program. We are actively looking for mentors. If you're interested in being a mentor, please drop a line here in the chat and we can get you the application to join as a mentor. Also, so incredibly proud of our Net Zero Accelerator program. This is our third year this year of this program. And the whole point of this program is to take some of the innovative technology that we have today for the built environment and help that scale. We've got great technology that's out there now that is ready to make a difference. We just need to really fine tune that and put it on a platform so it can expand and grow faster and make an impact faster. And so that's what our accelerator is really all about. It's about pilots and community and storytelling. You're going to meet our new cohort this afternoon. We have a session from 2 to 4 p.m. of a showcase of our new companies in the program this year. Please come out and meet them. We've got some great companies. And thank you, Colin, for all your hard work on running the accelerator. And last year, we've been working on this well before the pandemic, but we also launched our Healthy Building Alliance. We really felt that we needed to create a framework that anyone who's interested in having healthy space can engage in. This is really an equity issue for us. And so we created a commitment. This is not a certification, it's a commitment that anyone can make to 5 principles around building health. So whether you're doing this for your home office or for your business, this program is available on our website. It's free for our members. It's really meant to provide a gateway so that folks who want to have a healthy space can get involved, figure out solutions, get access to resources. We help people on their journey, but this is a commitment that anyone can make to healthy space, and we hope you get engaged. And then another issue that I think we've all been touched by in the last year, if not the last few years, especially those of us who are natives here in Southern California, we've really gotten a lot more active in looking at how can we help reduce fire risk in our buildings. I really feel passionately this is an issue that our sustainability community needs to adopt and own. There's sort of a gap of any industry owning this issue. And so we've been ramping up our programming around this. It's one of those things when you dive in, you find out there's not as much education around best practices to reduce fire risk out there that you would hope and think that there would be. And that's an opportunity for us to really fill that gap and provide value. We have an event coming up on June 17th. We've got some amazing speakers who are really bringing together the sustainability community with the fire prevention community, talking about how can we work together to reduce our fire risk here in California. And we hope you come out for that. And my last thing I want to leave you with is just be engaged with us. Be a member, join a committee, be a mentor, be a volunteer, support an initiative. The time is now for us to come together and work together to create a better future for all. And we really want to help be that platform, that conduit for your activism, for your energy, to help make things happen. And if you're inspired by the work we do, our small nonprofit team could always use a little bit more support. So please donate now by texting GREEN to 707070. Anything you can spare really makes a difference for us and really helps us continue to move forward. I want to say thank you to our sponsors for this event today. We couldn't put on this event and with all the work it entails without your support. I also want to say thank you to our team, especially Becky and Farah and Priscilla and Julie and everyone, Fernanda, Colin, everyone's worked so hard to put this event on, and this takes months. So I want to say thank you to our team. And also check out our exhibitor booths. We have some amazing exhibitors here. We have over 60 different groups exhibiting today. That includes our net zero companies, that includes our community partners and marketing partners. We have so many friends in our community that have come out to take part of this event today, and we really appreciate your support and time. And I also want to say thank you to our annual sponsors. We can't do what we do without you on a day-to-day basis. So thank you so much for that. And then just a little housekeeping here for the day. So if you haven't used Whova before, as you go into the app on the website or even on your phone, the phone app's actually really good as well, especially for communication. There's a toolbar here on the left-hand side of the screen. Go into that toolbar, you can click on agenda to see the schedule and join sessions as they happen. There's also a variety of different ways for you to engage with folks. There's some community threads for conversations. You can direct message people. We have some art that's there. We also have a passport contest that I'm going to talk about here a little bit more in a moment. And all the sessions are being recorded and be accessible through this platform. within 1 week for the next year. So you can still communicate with people, you can chat with people after the event, and this can really live on. And speaking of the Expo Hall, we have a passport contest. So if you visit 25 booths in the Expo Hall, you will be entered into a raffle to either win a LEED Green Associate exam credit or a Wind personal air purifier. Wind is one of our companies in the Net Zero Accelerator this year, and they have an air purifier that is there for a personal basis that can be really, really valuable. So please check out that passport and visit the folks in Expo Hall. We have some amazing prizes for you to win. And now, without further ado, because I think I've probably gone a little long already, and you probably are sick of hearing from me after 15 months of seeing me on Zoom, I would like to introduce Kerry Duggan. And Kerry Duggan is a cross-sector connector and change agent with an ESG mindset and a DEI core values. She finds and drives creative ways to implement triple bottom line principles into actionable policy, processes, and projects. She is a recognized thought leader who sought for advice, creative solutions, and connections by investors and executives through her firm, Sustainability, as well as her many volunteer efforts. She is on the advisory boards of Rock Creek, Aclima, Walker Miller Energy Services, and Arcturus Impact Investors. She is a senior fellow with the Federation of American Scientists. Duggan takes a place-based approach to clean energy, climate resilience, environmental protection, and in helping city, states, and the USG accelerate evolving equity-related challenges. In February of 2021, Governor Whitmer appointed Duggan to the State of Michigan's Council on Climate Solutions to advise on the implementation of the Michigan Healthy Climate Plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and transition toward economy-wide carbon neutrality. In 2020, Duggan was a surrogate and policy advisor for the Biden campaign. She was also a Biden appointee to the Biden-Sanders Unity Climate Change Task Force alongside Secretary John Kerry and Gina McCarthy. She has spent nearly 7 years in federal service, including the Obama-Biden White House, as Deputy Director for Policy to then Vice President Joe Biden for Energy, Environment, Climate, and Distressed Communities. Welcome, Kerry, and take it away.
Thank you, Ben. Hopefully technology is working. Hi, good morning. It's afternoon here in Detroit. Ben, thanks. I really do appreciate the opportunity to be with you today to talk to the MGBC 2021 Conference and Expo. I want to give a particular shout out to my former colleague and your chair, Christine Harada. Really have enjoyed the opportunity to work with her on so many things over the years. I know that you're also going to be joined with Nancy Sutley, Angela Branco, and another trusted colleague, Lauren Faber-O'Connor, as well as, of course, the Mayor Garcetti. As I was thinking about today, I remembered visiting with Mayor Garcetti a couple times. I think the last one was at the LACI with then Vice President Biden. And then, of course, before that at the US-China Climate Summit in Los Angeles. So got to spend some time with him and the team. And I also noticed that Mayor Edler is on your roster for today. So I wanted to give him a particular hat tip. Got to know him after my time in service and visit him. I mean, what a smart city leader. So great agenda, great folks. You went through my illustrious background, Ben. It's a little awkward to hear all that stuff, but thanks. I won't spend any of my time with you today really reading you into the deliberations of, the energy transition or the Unity Task Force. Those are really, was a significant amount of my work in 2020. I think, it definitely has shaped what I'm going to talk about today, but more importantly, the work leading up to that. Both at the White House, at the Department of Energy, and in Detroit. So as you said in my intro, I am a big believer in cross-sector collaboration. And since we know no one alone can solve the climate crisis, that's kind of been my attitude for a couple decades now, and how I found myself both in the nonprofit sector and the public sector and in the private sector now, running my own shop. So look, I'm not going to teach you anything you don't already know about building principles and practices and products. I know that's the really sexy stuff of building codes and building performance and applying standards. And it doesn't get better than that. And I'm totally kidding. I do think that stuff is so important. What you do really does matter. And you're an enormous piece of the puzzle and one that often gets overlooked. So I just wanted you to know that I'm really thrilled to join you today. I know that sometimes folks jump to things like renewables and electric vehicles this week in particular, with my former boss zipping around in a Ford Lightning, which was fun to watch. But I do tip my hat to you. You do start with the easiest savings, or what should be the easiest savings for individuals and the taxpayer not to spend on energy. So I'll just point out, this has been a very busy week. I'm sure most of you attended the Better Buildings Summit. If not, I did look online and much of the content is still there. Thrilled to see my former colleagues from the department still putting on a great summit. And I'm sure you're also following along with the administration's new buildings announcement. You covered some of that in your intro, Ben, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but I just want to say the clip at which the administration is putting out content in our general, sustainability space is truly breathtaking and a reflection of the boss. So if you haven't had a chance to look through the fact sheets on accelerating efforts around buildings, or the one just yesterday on climate risk, I mean, that's very timely and in the news. Or even the president's visit to the Ford factory, which I was really honored to be able to attend and spend some time with him. So I just want to point you to those things. They're certainly available online off the White House webpage. But I guess, today, I'm often asked to read the tea leaves for what's going on in Washington. I also, since this is an LA-based audience, I want to say I do enjoy your movies that you put out that try to show what it's like working at the White House. I think Christine and I have had some laughs over the years about what it's like and then what it's really like. I won't go into that today, although happy to have a cup of coffee with anyone who wants to chat about it some other time. But the tea leaves for me on this administration are nothing surprising, but I do think I want to kind of cap them off for you. So obviously reducing carbon is the big goal. Creating good jobs, and you'll hear the president talk a lot about good paying union jobs, and then really putting equity at the center of everything. And I was reading the materials for this conference ahead of time. I mean, you have all that content. I'm, again, telling you nothing you don't know that is the reality. And what's neat about this group is the walking of the walk. So, the municipal buildings, as well as the federal government, you're definitely in sync with the administration on that. I'm loving what I'm seeing about the federal government really taking care of taxpayer dollars and making sure that we spend them wisely and they're not just going out through the buildings that the significant amount of buildings and space that the federal government owns. Now, the question of how this gets done, I think, is really one that is unique to the president. His approach is really one of humility and respect for place. And again, another great reason for me to join you here today is that this is a place-based group. I have a fondness for that approach. To me, it's really about respecting the risks, Ben just talked about, that are unique to your place in the world. I'm in Michigan. We have our own unique risks and vulnerabilities to climate. And so I think that's an attitude that you'll see reflected in the administration. Another is partnership. This administration has been calling it a whole of government approach, and I think that really does show up, and you're seeing it literally, it feels like every day in their policies that they put out. But calling out in particular the universities, the labs, the cities, and LA, you guys are a great example of how to work in partnership. Collaboration, I'll touch on a little bit today, both private, public, nonprofit, and philanthropic. There's real need and opportunity in order to keep equity really at the center of this conversation and action. And finally, integration. I've made the kind of wisecrack that, everybody kind of needs a chief integration officer because there are a lot of silos of excellence out there. And I'll talk about that a little bit today. So that's my outline for what I'm going to be joining you today to talk about. And I'll try to offer you a challenge because I think that's really what your agenda called for. The time is now. So what does that actually mean? And for me, like many of you, I'd love to put 2020 in the past and forget about it for all the reasons that it was horrific and stressful. But it was also a critical inflection point and one that should continue to motivate our collective work. I would just ask that we not forget that, because as horrific as it was, there, this great reckoning that's happened should be a big motivator. And you all work on what I call kitchen table issues. And that's really, really important. This pandemic has made that hit home for so many Americans that are now much more intimate with the places they live and considerations around energy and public health than they were 14 months prior. So here in Detroit, where I live, which is another coastal state, by the way, I just want to point that out. We're the North Coast in Michigan, but here in Detroit, we were hit particularly hard at the beginning of the pandemic, and the intersectionality, which you all know very well, played out in real time here. So a colleague of mine, Ben, you mentioned one of my colleagues, Walker Miller Energy Services. It's an energy efficiency services company, and their CEO mentioned to me that in Detroit, pre-pandemic, there was a 75% walk away for people who qualified for even, the free or the utility sponsored retrofit programs. 75% of the time they got to a door, they would have to walk away for issues around mold or asbestos. There just simply isn't a roof on the house or so on. And that was before the pandemic. So then you throw in a respiratory pandemic, and what did you expect other than really bad numbers at the beginning? So I can tell you that this is stuff that's near and dear to my heart. And what I can teach you about, at least my approach and how my career, I think some people are always interested in how I ended up working for the now president. It is this road that has gone through place to policy. My road just happened to be, from Detroit to the White House and back again. And I'm really grounded in place. And so I'm really honored to be with a group of people that are, for 20 years, been getting together to really focus on what you can do to lift up your community. So just a bit of history beyond the thumbnail that Ben gave you, the super embarrassing thumbnail that Ben gave you is the, let's see, I think it was 2010, President Obama and VP Biden, then VP Biden at the time, sent a team to Detroit. And I was on that team for about 6.5 years. I was embedded in City Hall before, during, and after the bankruptcy. And I also kept that body of work when I was in the White House working directly for then VP Biden. And at first, I have to tell you, this is my learning journey. I came from the Department of Energy. I came from an office you all know very well, EERE at the Department of Energy. And I came to that work with colleagues from all the other, domestic agencies in my little silo of excellence. I was tasked with looking at the street lighting problem in Detroit. Just for context, when we set out on that work, there was 88,000 streetlights, 44,000 of them were not working. In a city of, just shy of 700,000, it's pitch black at night. So, kids going to school in the morning are coming back, or the elderly trying to get to their appointments. It was a very dangerous situation. I heard horror stories about people having to make a choice, walk down the center of the road and risk getting hit by a car or being snatched up by somebody in the darkness. So really, really horrible stuff. But I came in with my silo of excellence hat on. I was there to deploy those LED lights that we were busy driving down the cost of at the time. And it took me a minute to really get what it meant, what I was up to. It was more than great technology. It was really about, improving the quality of light. So we did that for light. We did that for buses. We did that for lights, and we rinsed and repeated. And the way we did that is a collaborative approach with all the domestic agencies working together, sharing pain points and learning in real time, and trying to really unlock capacity and technical expertise for the city. I will say it was not easy work. It was like in a very famous period of time for the city of Detroit. So it required trust building, capacity building, like I said, technical assistance. And in 2 cases I worked on, we actually co-wrote technical specifications for the city and its partners to do things like a streetlight conversion to LEDs or put out an urban solar park, which didn't exist on this side of the Mississippi at that scale at the time. So it did require a lot of coordination, and I might even add disruption, to use a famous California term, not a term you usually hear associated with the federal government, but that's what our charge was. And gosh, for me, this has been reflected back a couple of times in the last 2 years. A colleague of mine here in Detroit, Rip Rapson, who heads the Kresge Foundation, if you all are familiar, put a piece in Bloomberg recently, earlier this month, that reflects back on those days and how we might use a city like Detroit as a model for the country to step forward, coming out of the pandemic. So anyway, the key learning for me was how to de-silo to make yourself useful. And while I understand that this is a municipal building crowd, I would also offer, like I said at the top, the cross-sector collaboration is really important. Anyway, I can't teach you anything about green buildings that you don't already know, but I can share with you what is really important to me. And in fact, the reason I got scooped up by the now president to be his advisor was the place-based, listening first, providing capacity, providing technical assistance and resources, and celebrating with them in that order. So that's what caught his eye. And I would say played out now a couple years later, where if I was a graphic artist, which I'm so not, I can write you a fine policy memo. I would draw an illustration of a person with an economic development hat on, and in their glasses, one lens would be justice and the other would be jobs. And that's sort of how I think about this administration and their approach to the world right now. And you see that coming out of the policies. I mean, for me, I spent a lot of time on the campaign trail talking about Justice 40. I'm really excited to see how that plays out. And you guys are all going to have a role in that. And you can see it across the whole of government approach. The climate risk order that came out yesterday is just another fine example. So again, for me, it's about respect. And for the president, I believe it is about dignity. I mentioned that this week the president was at the Ford Electric Vehicle Center in Dearborn, Michigan, which is about 20 minutes from here. I was lucky enough to attend, and it was really fun to see the boss get in, the F-150 Lightning. He was really there to talk about the future of our economy. And Ben, you talked about it for a minute on jobs, and that's really what it is. I mean, you guys have all heard him say that when he thinks about climate change, he thinks about jobs. So I was thrilled to hear what you had to say about the talent portal. The American Jobs Plan is exactly that. So for this audience and for you all listening, the plan promises to build, rehabilitate, and retrofit more than 2 million homes across the country, improving our nation's facilities, walking the walk, as I said, an effort to create new domestic manufacturing opportunities for electric heating and cooling technology, R&D to spur market building advancements, and forge collaborations that will enable technology to be deployed to clean electricity in our buildings, which is great. And he followed up again with that announcement on climate risk. So that's, for those of you who haven't had a chance to read it, I know you're all checking the White House briefing page every day, just like I am. That is a move towards transparency, demanding that we analyze, disclose, and mitigate climate risk, addressing disparate impacts of climate change and leaning into the full economic opportunity while protecting life savings of our workers. So taken together, it's all about increasing resilience of our economy and better managing taxpayer dollars. So for those of you who've been in the fight for decades, it's almost a real pace that the administration is coming out with now. He's not squandering time, which is, again, the theme of your conference. The time is now. So it seems like a good place to tell you about a friend of mine. His friend is really smart and really successful, but when she was young and dumb, she got a tattoo that said Carpe Diem, or so she thought. When she got home to see it in the mirror, it was safely tucked away on her back, and she discovered they had spelled it incorrectly. And my friend learned that some mistakes are almost permanent, but unless it's fatal, most problems are solvable. So collectively, our problem is solving this climate crisis. And someone told me, as I said, that has to be done in collaboration, and which is tricky and not easy work. Otherwise, this would be done. And so somebody I was talking to recently told me about, I think it was a book they read about the secret to great friendships or marriages or whatever is radical acceptance of the other. And for instance, in this case, I think about how we have to radically accept that we are in a climate crisis, an economic crisis, a public health crisis, racial equity crisis, and that we also need to radically accept that not everyone will get it the way that we do in sustainability. But what we can do is speak to their economics. And that was something I learned from working with Secretary Kerry over the last year. He's the other Kerry, as I like to tell him. Really thinking about people's economics and where they are and meeting them where they are is a great way to kind of break through and radically accept people. You might notice I do have some bipartisanship in my own resume. I'm really proud of that. And that's really getting through all the stuff, agreeing that you're going to disagree on some things and focusing on what you can. And for most people, you can really get to their economic condition and move on. So radically accepting that not everyone gets this or wants to, we need to move forward with our economic development hats on, our glasses with jobs and justice. And if we do this right, it won't matter your political affiliation. We're not making nonpartisan insulation. It's just not a thing, right? Or in Michigan, we like to say, there's no such thing as a Republican pothole or a Democratic pothole. So the resiliency of our infrastructure as a whole. And for this conference, I do think, beyond buildings, I think how you integrate with energy, transportation, water, digital, and community as infrastructure. So that's where I come back to my cross-sector collaboration as a really key, including that soft infrastructure. So back to my friend Rip, who was in Bloomberg, He talks about the four-part crisis and what needs to happen. And in my view, the word I've been using, which should have probably been the theme of my speech, Ben, here, is slingshot. So back when I was doing the Detroit work, I used to say, we're going to leapfrog Detroit into the world-class technology. And that's kind of true, because at the time they were planning to reinstall Thomas Edison's technology, which I argued that we could probably do something better at this point in history. And what I've learned over the last couple of years, and particularly during this crisis, is that not everyone is starting even from a place of having infrastructure, right? Even basic infrastructure. So you actually have to go back and go further. So that's why I'm updating some terminology to slingshot. But anyway, you guys are a buildings conference, and LA has been a clear leader. And thankfully, so many cities and states stuck it out there in the dark years and kept carrying the torch in the absence of federal leadership. I just want to say, having weathered that storm with you, just an enormous amount of gratitude to your leaders for holding up that mantle. I know that the Biden administration feels the same way, for the real gratitude for what you've all done. And there's a couple shining examples I want to reflect back to you that I'm certainly aware of. The partnership that you forged with the National Renewable Energy Lab on LA 100 has definitely been a model for the country. And it's models like that are really important. But as you all know, in LA, not everyone fits into your clothes out there. So us in the Midwest, we need to partner with you to find ways to make what you've learned and gone through in that process more coherent. So what I would say, going back to my time on the Detroit task force, one of my fondest memories was actually a convening that we did with the then Secretary of Energy, Moniz. We brought in, I want to say, a dozen leaders from around the country, including Los Angeles. The mayor, I remember, said, whatever you need. And so we had gathered these technical experts to sit around the table with the folks in Detroit who were the decision makers to talk about the experience of doing a streetlight conversion to LED. Incredibly influential. And I want to tell you that collaboration is the kind of thing that we need to see going forward. So that really is going to be my challenge to you. And I'll leave you with this quote that sticks out in my mind from that meeting. The COO of the city, during their municipal bankruptcy, said to me after that convening that LA was at, your technical assistance is more important to us than your money. And I was taken aback by that myself. Apologies for the dog. During a pretty famous bankruptcy, that's what was said. So just to emphasize, I know that I'm going to run out of time, but I wanted to leave you with some updated terms as some homework, and then my final call to action. So I've thought a lot about, what I read in the press and about our goals. And the thing that always comes up is we need a bold, blah, blah, blah. We need bold. And I'm done with bold, everybody. I'm more onto creative. We need creative solutions because we're up against a pretty serious climate clock. And so put on, LA, I mean, you guys are sitting on a wealth of creativity, and it's time to engage, and including the arts. I already said slingshot, not leapfrog, because we do need to consider the equity piece. There are communities that don't even have the basics that you and I have come to enjoy, and they need to be considered. Integration instead of silos of excellence. Understanding, like I said, we all should be wearing our economic development hat. Deployment first. Deploy what we know works. Again, in government land, and Christine knows this really well, we always talk about RD, D&D, and I think it needs to be switched around, and I think you're going to see that out of some of the leadership. And then it's all jobs, not green jobs, if we're going to have an economy-wide goal. So stop saying green jobs. So that's some of the terminology. So hopefully I've left you with some key things here, which is really, if you're going to seize the day, spelled correctly, and understand that the time is now, it does require cross-sector collaboration, working with companies and community colleges and unions and beyond to try and bring that workforce that Ben says is diverse and actually reflects America. I'm so thrilled, Ben. I'm going to come back to you and make sure I get my hands on that portal and understand how you put it together. But I really want to leave you with, gratitude for the work you've done, the 20 years that of sweat you've put in, and a call for you to share what you've learned on this journey with the rest of the country. You have the great benefit of being part of a great, how did you put it, Ben? Cousin of the national, but you need to work with that network and make sure that we all benefit out there in the rest of the country from LA's leadership. So with that, I just really want to say thank you for having me. Thanks for bringing a Midwesterner out to get a tan with you all today. I sure need one. And I'll give the floor back to you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Kerry. Thank you for your time with us this morning. And thank you too for helping us learn how to translate some of the terms we're using and so that they're more current with the rest of the country. Sometimes in California, we use a lot of our own lingo. So we need to get a little better about that. Next up, we have an introduction from Andrew Kozidar, who's the advisor for government relations for Southern California Edison. Andrew?
Hey, good morning. So I'm Andrew Kozidar from Southern California Edison. It's an honor to introduce our next speaker, Senator Dave Cortese. Up here in Sacramento, the senator has been establishing a good name for himself as a leader in building decarbonization. And since I don't really want to steal his thunder, I'll leave it to the senator to discuss specifics. I will say that it is encouraging to see leaders like Senator Cortese championing building decarbonization within the legislative policy arena and helping to ensure that this critical issue gets the attention that it needs. Edison also actively embraces building decarbonization. In fact, Edison recently published a white paper titled Pathway 2045, which suggests that we need to electrify around 70% of our building stock in order to meet our greenhouse gas goals. But I digress. Our next speaker has had an illustrious career. Before being elected a senator in 2020 to represent much of the Santa Clara County in the heart of the Silicon Valley. Along with his accomplished career as an attorney and business owner, the senator previously served on the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors for over a decade, with 4 years as board president. The senator also sat on the San Jose City Council for 8 years, including 2 years as vice mayor, and as a trustee for the Eastside Union High School District for 8 years. The senator's commitment to addressing climate change is noteworthy and far too lengthy to mention here. I'm actually told that it includes some work with Al Gore, but I would like to end by mentioning a recent highlight, and that is in 2018, Senator Cortese led the effort for the approval of Santa Clara County's Climate Restoration Emergency Resolution, which was the first of its kind in this nation. That same year, the senator was honored to be the only elected official to address the first annual Climate Restoration Forum at the United Nations headquarters in New York City. Gives me great pleasure to now virtually hand over the mic to the Honorable Senator Dave Cortese. Senator.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew, for that wonderful introduction. I hope everyone can hear me okay. That's always a guessing game, I think, sometimes with these Zoom connections. I want to thank you and the U.S. Green Building Council of Los Angeles for bringing us all here together to share best practices and comprehensive approaches to tackle what I believe, and I think many of you, if not all of you, believe is our most existential threat. I'm inspired by incredibly effective leaders joining the conference that have successfully fought for climate smart policies across the country and the world. We're continually reminded that unless we take transformative action today, things will only get exponentially worse over time, and that's over a short period of time. And the real issue, of course, we hear so often people saying the planet is at stake, or let's save the planet. The real issue is humanity. The planet will survive. The question is whether or not it will be habitable for us humans. And I think, again, all of you recognize that. Real world observations of climate change are negatively impacting our natural resources, industry, infrastructure, human health, safety, and quality of life. You can see it in historic wildfires that ravage our state. We're experiencing droughts that continue to threaten our well-being. There's disadvantaged communities that continue to bear a disproportionate burden, much like we've seen with the big crisis of the past 16 months or so, the pandemic. Same issue when it comes to equity. I know all of us are deeply worried about what our future will look like and what this means for us, for our children, more importantly, and future generations. And as we all know, be it the climate strike or any number of other efforts, our children are continuously reminding us now that this is a huge, huge responsibility for all of us. As Andrew mentioned, my roots are in local government, and this experience has helped me to shape the legislative approaches I pursued at the Senate. The locals, in a lot of places, by and large, have gotten it right when it comes to efficiency standards in our buildings. Cities and counties across California, for example, have already updated their building codes to become GHG free. We launched that effort in Santa Clara County. By the time we did it as a county government, where I was there as a member of the Board of Supervisors, the majority of our cities in Santa Clara County and the community choice aggregation entity that we've been working with had all already stepped up. They've made the switch to clean energy and launched clean energy programs on a regular basis now in Santa Clara County. It's just a given. Now we need to bring that same kind of progress statewide, and to make those kind of policies the new normal for California, nationally and globally, for our climate, our economy, and our health. Building a future with a more livable climate is a principle that guides me every day as an elected leader. Sure, we're facing, in reality, no joking, perhaps half a dozen extremely serious crises right now in the state of California, some of them connected to climate, some not, but crises nevertheless. And we've been addressing that. But this is something that I know has to be dealt with over and above really every other crisis that we're dealing with. That's why December 7th, the day I was sworn in, 2 days after I left the Board of Supervisors, I was sworn into the state Senate on December 7th, and I was invited to introduce my first bill. And instead of introducing one, I introduced something that became known as the California Building Decarbonization Package. 3 primary bills, SB 30, 31, and 32, and they really covered a gamut of areas that need to be addressed and effectuated, really. This all comes down to implementation at some point. The State Air Resources Board estimates that our state's building energy, that energy use accounts for almost 25% of our GHG. And in 2016, that accounted for 37 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emitted. So while the focus, and rightly so, in the early years of addressing this crisis have been on tailpipe emissions, we can't ignore the fact that building decarbonization is a big issue in terms of its contribution to the solution. And in order to prevent the worst impacts of climate change on our communities, I think we have to accelerate California's transition away from fossil fuels in our building sector, just like we're trying to do in our transportation sector. Building decarbonization can reduce total greenhouse gas emissions in a single family home 30 to 60% on average, and cut US carbon emissions by 1 billion tons annually. SB 30, which had been dubbed the State Buildings and Assets Decarbonization Act of 2021, focuses on state buildings. And I'm just going to kind of cut to the chase and not give you all the details, because I'll tell you as an aside, when I was a youngster and a young man, my father was a member of the California State Assembly for a period of time. And I never really got used to hearing those long speeches with all the details about bills, Assembly bill this and Assembly bill that and Senate bill this and that. But I want to hit the high points. I believe that the state needs to be an early adopter. I believe that we need to back what the CEC and state agencies have started to do already, like the Department of General Services. We need to legislatively say it's the right thing to do to dramatically reduce building emissions in our own buildings. If the state of California is not willing to do that with its own building stock and its own new development, it gets pretty hard to tell other people that they should be doing the same darn thing. SB 31, the Decarbonization Programs Act of 2021, similar name, it would develop new building decarbonization programs through the CEC and the Public Utilities Commission, with a particular emphasis on providing opportunities for low-income customers. This bill will award funds through CEC's existing EPIC program for projects that will benefit electricity ratepayers, lead to the development and deployment of commercial and residential building decarbonization technologies and investments. I mean, in short, what's going on there is we have grant programs now that offer grants for a lot of good emissions work or emissions reduction work. But building decarbonization is not one of the things currently that you can qualify a grant for. That needs to be corrected. SB 32, I'm sad to say, did not get out of appropriations this week. It's, I don't know if it's unusual or not, because I'm new at the state Senate business, but a very important bill to us that we'll have to reintroduce sometime soon, because I think in many ways it's the most sweeping and most important of all of this package. And what it intends to do is to make sure that general plans in our cities and counties reflect whatever building decarbonization work is planned in those communities. I mentioned earlier, a majority of the cities in my home county, Santa Clara County, early on adopting REACH codes. If we have local governments that are embedding in their building codes, or even a state government that's doing that and pushing those building codes down, it's important to take those numbers and extrapolate them into your through your planning documents. And I'll tell you why, because we have legislation passed like AB 32 and SB 375 and SCS plans, regional plans that need to be adopted in all of our regions that demonstrate to the state that we're hitting our targets in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. In the past, of course, again, that's been primarily focused on tailpipe emissions, and our MPOs, our transportation agencies, have been at the forefront of tackling those requirements under SB 375 and the SCS plans. But at the same time, they're bound to regional housing needs analysis plans. They're trying to determine by workforce proximity how to reduce GHG. But thus far, they don't have any data on the hundreds of thousands of homes that need to be built in a place like the Bay Area, where the target for home construction and development over the next planning horizon is 600,000 homes. If we don't know what's happening with those homes in terms of building decarbonization or not, I mean, if we don't know what's happening, how can we possibly measure where we're going? Number one. And number two, how can we gauge what targets and what policies and even what legislation might be needed in the future to make sure that that sector is contributing? Lastly, as you all know, probably the average first or second grader can figure out, let alone any of us that have advanced degrees, if you're going to build 600,000 homes that are going to be around for 50, 60, 100 or more years, and those homes were not built to decarbonization standards in the first place, we are committing ourselves in exactly the wrong direction long term. So that's what we're up to. We will keep at it. There is a lot of work that needs to be done. And I'll tell you, I'll be the first to admit that when I first launched these bills and this legislation, this effort at the state level, I underestimated the issues that we kind of call intersectionality today. We have been rightfully expediting climate legislation, not just in the decarbonization space, but overall. There is a strong cohort of state senators and state assembly members who stick together and who are working as a de facto caucus to get this work done. That's the good news. But we have to work just as fast to make sure that we're answering the questions about corporate transition, about workforce transition, and whatever other fallout there may be that comes maybe in an unintended way from the rapid deployment of these kinds of policies and legislation that will save us here in California and continue to make us a global leader on climate. It's not okay for us to be very specific, like I just was, with legislation and policy around decarbonization or anything else related to climate, and then be very ambiguous about what it means in terms of workforce transition, workforce development policies, and so forth. I think the governor's budget, the revision that just came out, begins to tackle that problem. but we're going to have to do a lot more, and we're going to have to do it just as quickly as we're doing everything else in this climate space. Thank you so much for having me today. We're open to ideas and suggestions and support and coalition building and anything else that you can continue to bring to the table. Thank you for your efforts, and I appreciate once again being here with you today.
Thank you very much, Senator Cortese, and thank you for your leadership on building decarbonization for our state. It's really, really important, and we look forward to working together with you and your coalition as well.
Thank you.
All right, so far we've had a couple recurring themes this morning of intersectionality, and clearly that the time is now. It's interesting because we had debated trying to find some sort of name for this conference when we were working on planning it 6 months ago around intersectionality, but it's tough to get people really excited about intersectionality, which is why we ended up on the time is now, because we also feel like the time is really now. Now, before we release you here into the rest of our agenda today, just a quick reminder that you use the toolbar on the left-hand side of your screen. You can look at the agenda, the attendee list, you can chat with people, there's community boards, there's the expo hall. Please check out all the resources there, and you can click through on everything to attend different sessions. And all our sessions are going to be recorded as well, so don't worry about missing out on something. You'll have a chance to see it later, and you'll be able to chat through the app after the event also. And then we're going to have a little bit of time here for folks to go visit the expo hall. We do have a passport contest, which you can see on the menu to the left as well. And if you visit 25 different expo booths, you'll be entered into a raffle to either win a free LEED GA exam credit or a Wind personal air purifier with an air quality sensor. These things are really cool. Wind is one of the companies in our Net Zero Accelerator this year. And again, you just have to visit 25 booths in the expo hall in order to get entered into that contest. I also want to mention quickly, one of the things that's important to me, I feel like art has just such an incredible way of really communicating and connecting with people in a way that other things don't. And it's really, I think, important in our space here in sustainability that we continue to keep our humanity in the work we do. We wanted to make sure we integrated a number of our elements into our conference. So we have a few poems today, and I'm going to close our session this morning with one of the poems from Right Girl. Right Girl is an LA-based creative writing and mentoring organization that spotlights the power of a girl and her pen. And we've got some great poems from them that are really talking about sustainability and what it means to them here in LA. Tomorrow at Community Green, we are closing out the day with a performance by A.Y. Young, who is a producer, singer, and songwriter, entertainer, and entrepreneur. He began writing poetry at the age of 14, a reaction to the great disparity in Kansas City, known as the Truce Divide. And while touring the USA, he learned that over 1 billion people lack access to electricity. So he began powering his concerts using renewable energy, raising awareness about sustainability and fundraising to bring people electricity. Thus, the Battery Tour was born and is plugged into 17 countries to date. We're looking to see if we can bring the Battery Tour here for MGBCE 2022. And then we also have Art by LA Commons. If you, again, click on the bar on the left, you can see an Arts and Entertainment tab. Their art engages communities in artistic and cultural expressions that tell their unique stories and serve as a basis for dialogue, interaction, and a better understanding of LA. They do this through community arts programs centered on youth leadership development, and they help diverse and generally low-income neighborhoods create dynamic works of public art that can build community connection and empowerment. So please check those out, and remember to keep a little bit of our humanity as we continue to learn and be distant from each other during this time. And with that, we're going to close out this session here with a poem called Mother by Jamie Chen.
My name is Jamie, and this is my poem, Mother. 2 shades of faded blue on canvas. Incongruent laces, I had missed a few loops. Breathe in, count 1, 2. Looming is lush abundance. Describing my sky, a particular hue of green. The society of pocket-sized blossoms tug at my left foot forward. 3 blocks west, then turn right. Breathe out, 3, 4. Soaking across the city, an insidious shade of gray. Oblivious is a child at play. The forgotten cluster from the nomenclature weed, singing between the cracks of the unforgiving black concrete. Maybe Velcro was the way to go. Sinking into the soft part of the grass, I look at our foundation eye to eye. I cannot shake the dirt from my hair. She knows my ancestral roots. Before pavements inhibited her roots from spanning freely, before the skies were opaque with irresponsibility, and before oceans were familiar with the plastic convenience and red ink spilling out, "Have a good day," she held us. Breathe in, 1, 2.
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you, Right Girl. Appreciate that moment to really center ourselves, and we have two other poems later today from two other performers. Our first session's here from 10:15 to 11:05. You have a little bit of time now to take a break, get some more coffee, or visit the expo hall. We have our gathering of the green teams. We have a session on scalable and duplicatable solutions for transforming your institution to 100% clean and renewable energy. We have a session on policy, funding, and sustainable development, oh my, all focused on Long Beach. And we also have a question of equity in the design of our urban landscapes presented by Forum LA. And then our morning sessions too, from 11:10 to noon. We have maintaining life and learning continuity through a pandemic. This is a really important session featuring some work that was done down in San Diego. Measuring environmental and social responsibility for transportation infrastructure. We have what do local government staff say, understanding California REACH code adoption and implementation. And then we have addressing systematic sheltering emergencies through sustainable building practices in a post-COVID world, which is looking at some really cool modular solutions for affordable housing. So I hope you join the rest of our sessions this morning. I'll see you back here a little bit at noon, I guess, to go through some of our awards. We have our civic awards today, and we also have some more keynotes. And we have an amazing power panel of mayors talking about the race to zero, including an introduction from Mayor Garcetti for our power panel at noon. So enjoy the morning at the conference. I'll see you out there, and thank you for spending your time with us today.